When it comes to Japan, Japan is a nation that battles with the earthquake nearly every day. Nearly every day, there are about 10 of the earthquakes that strike Japan, but at the same time, it has made itself resilient. And what are the things that we can learn, the lessons that are there for India that we'll be talking about in today's session. Now, this topic is important because recently, when it comes to Japan, there had been earthquake that was of the magnitude of 7.4 or 7.6 magnitude. In some of the sources, it is 7.4. In some sources, it is 7.6 of the magnitude that have recently hit Japanese, Noto Peninsula in the Ishikawa prefecture that is there. When it comes to the impact, it has prompted high-level tsunami warnings across the sea of Japanese coast, and it is the first major tsunami warning that has been issued in Japan after or since the 2011 Tohoku disaster that have led to the Fukushima disaster as well. When it comes to the resilience that Japanese or the Japan have developed, so they have minimal structure collapse compared to the other countries or compared to the magnitude, showcasing that they had a quite engineering success when it comes to building these different buildings that they have built. Over here, you can see that this is the Noto Peninsula and this is in Ishikawa Prefecture where the epicenter had been located. Now, when it comes to Japan, so, this complete topic is relevant for us because it is relevant for the geography, because we will be talking about how Japan is or why Japan battles with nearly about 10 earthquakes every day. It is also important for GS3 because we'll be talking about what all lessons India can have. And again, it is important for your essay and ethics as well. Now, when it comes to the location of Japan, that is very, very important. When it comes to Japan is part of the Ring of Fire. At the same time, it is where we have the confluence of 4 of the tectonic plates. There are 4 tectonic plates which intersect over here. And these tectonic plates are, we have Pacific plate, it is a major plate. All right, we have North American plate, again a major plate. There is a Eurasian plate, again a major plate, and a minor plate, that is Philippine Sea plate. So these 4 plates are there and they are interacting with each other. And as per the plate tectonics, wherever there is a plate movement, so there will be earthquake that will be there. Whether it is a convergent plate, whether it is divergent plate, or even a transform plate. So on any of the plate margins, there would be earthquake. And over here, Japan is sitting on the intersection or confluence of the 4 of the tectonic plates. And that is the reason that this subduction zone, it results in the accumulation of massive energy, elastic energy, and that is released as tremors or as earthquakes. Now, when it comes to the magnitude, it matters. All right, when it comes to the magnitude, most of these earthquakes that Japan, that hits Japan, they are not that major. But at the same time, when it comes to the energy, so the energy is released after any of the earthquake. All right, this is measured by the Richter scale. At the same time, Japan has its own scale as well, that is called as Shindo scale. It is Japanese unique intensity scale that it uses. The magnitude 7 quake is about 32 times more powerful than a 6th magnitude. The Richter scale, it measures the energy which is static. And when it comes to the Shindo scale, which is from 0 to 7, it measures the surface shaking and it has a localized impact as well. You can compare the Shindo scale to the Mercalli scale. All right, so over here you can see that the 3 on the Shindo scale, it is felt by most people in buildings, felt by some people walking, many people are awakened. So over here, the kind of the earthquake intensity scale that Japan use, or the Shindo scale, it is more comparable to modified Mercalli or the Mercalli scale that is there. Now, when it comes to the tsunami, how the tsunami emerges. So what happens is that whenever the earthquake, it strikes in the ocean or in the sea region, so there is the energy that is released. Now, this energy, it gets converted into the kinetic energy. And there are the waves which then they travel. It is just like, you are throwing a stone and that leads to generation of various waves in the water body. So in the same way, when there is energy release because of the earthquake, so there are the waves which gets generated. Now, because of the high energy, they travel very fast. And because they travel very fast, they do not have a very high wavelength. All right, but their frequency is quite high. That is why they travel very, very fast. And what happens is that as they reach towards the shore, it gets shallower, and because the shore gets shallower, the kinetic energy, it gets, a break. And because the kinetic energy, it gets a break, so what happens is that kinetic energy, it changes into the potential energy, and that raises the height of these waves, and that is why these waves are quite dangerous, and they cause lots of disaster when they strike a region. Now, how the Japan have built itself resilient and how their buildings are constructed. So the first pillar of the construction is basically Taishin, which is basic, or the fundamental strength that is there. All right, there is a standard legal requirement for all the buildings, and it focuses on thickening of the walls and the beams to withstand the load of all the walls. At the same time, there are structural elements which are rigid, and they ensure that they do not snap under the pressure. It is ideal for the low-rise and also mid-rise residential units that are used. So the first pillar is Taishin, that is the basic structure. It is for the strengthening and also using the beams that will support the complete structure. This is called as Taishin. Then comes the second pillar, that is Seishin, or the dampening. What happens over here is the vibration control. There are dampers which are used, or the absorbers, just like we have rubber pads or the fluid-filled shocks that will dissipate energy. Alright, so there are fluid-filled shocks, or there are also rubber beams which are used, or rubbers which are used. So over here what happens is that instead of resisting the force rigidly, the building consumes the seismic energy through the heat or the friction, and then it dissipates it. This is mandatory for all the skyscrapers in Japan, and it prevents the upper floor from whipping violently, and that is why the skyscrapers in Japan, they survive. And the third pillar is Menjin, or isolation. Over here what happens is that the building is not constructed on the surface of the earth, but it sits on lead rubber bearings. The structure is decoupled from the ground. It is standing, or it is built away from the ground or above the ground. So wherever the earth moves, the building stays relatively still. Highest cost, but virtually it eliminates the internal structure damage that is there. So the building, they are raised higher and they are isolated from the earth's surface. This is the third pillar of the building codes that they follow, that is Menjin. And that is why when it comes to the earthquake, even with 7.4 Richter earthquake, the disaster, it is not that much. When it comes to the survival versus functionality, you will see that when it comes to Turkey, over there they have unreinforced masonry, brittle materials, and the materials, they crack and shatter instead of flexing. So we have seen in Turkey that there was a catastrophic structural collapse that have resulted in more than 55,000 of the deaths that have happened. Alright, at the same time in USA, California also sits on a high earthquake belt. Alright, there are frequent earthquakes in California as well, because it is on the San Andreas fault, or the California belt is again susceptible to lots of earthquake. So there are California active codes which are there. Strict engineering codes had been used that aim primarily to prevent the total building collapse, and it focuses on preserving the human life over preserving the physical structure. The buildings survive to protect life, but also they absorb the massive damage, often condemned or demolished after the earthquake. And then we have Japan, that is where we have hyper-dense megacities, and over here we have told that how the three pillar of the building structure or the building code that leads to very less loss of the life as well as of the structure over here. Now this is the structure brilliance that we have spoken about, that how Japan manages the frequent earthquake. But at the same time, this brilliance, it cannot stop the sea. If there is an earthquake that hits the ocean floor, there is ocean floor displacement, and that leads to this tsunami. And these tsunamis, they actually cause a lot of destruction that we have seen in the Fukushima as well, the Fukushima nuclear disaster that happened. Afterwards, in the recent times, what Japan had done, Japan had invested in the early warning systems as well, that is EEW. Over here, what happens is that there are the seconds which matter, and that Japan has realized. Alright, there are automated systems which are there in place in Japan that stop the bullet trains or the Shinkansen lines and even the gas lines instantly if the earthquake hits the region. At the same time, the deep sea buoys, they detect the pressure changes or the tsunami waves and they transmit data via the satellites, and there is the J alert system that gets triggered and it alarms on every mobile phone that is there in the affected area, and that is how Japan, it transmits the complete scenario or the complete alert within just a moments of seconds, and the residents or the people who are there in the affected area, they come to know about the tsunami, they come to know about the earthquake within matters of seconds, and this is what is important because the seconds, they matter. Now, there had been major historical disaster when it comes to Japan. In 1923, there was an earthquake of 7.9 magnitude in Great Kanto. There was fire devastation, and that is when the first modern building codes were developed by Japan. That was a major lesson that Japan had learned. In 1995, there was Great Hanshin earthquake of 6.9 magnitude. Over here, the Kobe destroyed, and there was the reform of the 1981 design law, which Japan did. At the same time, Tohoku was a major disaster in 2011. The magnitude of the earthquake was 9.0, and there were triple disaster, and here the focus was on increasing the seawall height and also for the nuclear security or the safety because of the Fukushima disaster. And right now in 2024, there is again a major earthquake that had hit the region in Noto, and it tests the rural resilience as well as the decentralized aid that is there. Alright, now this is a major lesson for India. We have revised the earthquake zone map of India. Alright, we have revised the earthquake zone map of India, and when it comes to the earthquake zone map of India, earlier there was zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, alright, and also zone 5, but there was no zone 6. Now, zone 6 had been added, and when it comes to the zone 6, this is the very high risk zone that is there. The entire of the northeast is included along with the parts of Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, as well as the Uttarakhand and Run of Kutch. They had been included in zone 6 of the region. The complete Himalayas had been included in zone 6. At the same time, the region which surrounds the Himalayas, it is under zone 5. Alright, zone 6, we have zone 5 also that is there. Like for example, the Leh part is there, zone 5. We also have the Run of Kutch region. Alright, we have Patna, that is nearby region to the Patna, or just the foothills of the Himalayas, that is in zone 5 of the region that we have. Zone 6 is complete northeast region. Alright, and the Himalayan gap is there. We have the potential for more than 8.5 magnitude of the earthquake that is very high in this region because of the Indian Eurasian plate that is converging and that have led to the formation of Himalayas in India. At the same time, when it comes to Delhi, you can see that Delhi is now included into, it is a part of zone 4. Alright, and over here, that makes the retrofitting of the buildings a nightmare, and that is again a lesson that we should get, or we should learn from Japan, that we have to move forward and we should be looking forward to save the lives in the event of any earthquake that strikes the region. Alright, these are the actionable lessons that we can move or we can get from Japan. The first thing is the National Building Code. We should have mandatory national building codes enforced that must transition from voluntary to the mandatory with the criminal liability that should be enforced. At the same time, there should be retrofitting where we should focus on soft story buildings in urban clusters, and the tax incentives should be there for the seismic proofing of the existing homes which are there in high risk zones. And there should be a culture of the care where we should integrate the disaster drills into the schools. We should mimic Japanese Bosai culture. Now, what is the Bosai culture? That in Japan, right from the childhood, they are taught how to survive the earthquake. Alright, even in the school, they have these drills which are conducted. So, the Bosai culture, it helps them to, to prevent themselves during the event of the disaster or during the event of earthquake. So, this will reduce the panic during the events that we have seen in India. So, this is very important for India, and we should learn some lessons from it also. When it comes to the disasters, they are not natural. They are the result of the nature's forces meeting human vulnerability. Alright, Japan proves that the science and governance that can neutralize the seismic threats. For India, the choice is between the preventive investment and or post-disaster relief. The transition from response-centric to resilience-centric management is the need of the hour that we have for India. So that would be all in today's session or this video. We'll meet again for another topic, and also you can reach out to me on my Telegram channel. This is my Telegram channel. You can join me just by scanning the QR code or for searching me at @Bhava_study_IQ. Alright, and if you are preparing for the civil services for the 2027 or 2028, so you can join our GS Foundation batch P2I, which are available in English, Hindi as well as in bilingual format. The batches will start from 27th of April and you can use the code BRS Live. This code will gain you, or it will get you, the maximum discount. So that would be all in this video. Thank you very much guys for watching it till the end. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind. Do take care of yourself, and also do not forget to like, share as well as subscribe to our channel so that you do not miss any of the future updates. Thank you and Jai Hind.